Hello YouTube, I'm Vince White. I'm an employment attorney, and on this channel, we answer publicly posted questions from YouTube users, getting folks the answers they need from an employment attorney. We've got a question originally posted on my YouTube video entitled, I spoke with 12 employment attorneys, and not one would take my case. And the question was posted by YouTube user Werewolf0216, who said, "This is garbage. I have tried about 20 different employment attorneys, and none will take my case. I have a valid case from my employer. A large, well-known aerospace company is denying me a reasonable accommodation that I have had anyway for 22 years with excellent performance year after year. It is just one manager who has made an issue of this. So I tried to get a reasonable accommodation, but the accommodation / medical group is corrupt. They won't enforce the Americans with Disabilities Act, even though the company's own policy mirrors the ADA. Instead, they are saying if my manager won't grant my accommodation, I can take a medical leave. That is insane. When if they just gave me the accommodation I have had anyway for 22 years with excellent performance, I can do my job proficiently. This is blatant discrimination. But no attorney will take my case, even though I can afford to pay. Why can't attorneys themselves just do the right thing and help people?" Okay, so here's the thing. Attorneys don't listen. But I'll say this. It is a little far-fetched that a really, really good ADA case went before 20 attorneys and was presented really well to 20 attorneys, especially for a client that can pay, right? And not one of those attorneys was like, yeah, I'll take this one, because the attorneys need those cases to survive. They need those cases to make money. So I think we can probably guess that something's going on here. And I'm definitely not blaming you, and I'm not saying you have a bad case, but we do have to explore some possibilities. First and foremost, you've been pitching this case a lot. Have you used our playlist on how to pitch a case more effectively? Are you getting frustrated because you pitched so many times? Are you rushing through because you pitched so many times? Like, how is the pitch going? Can you comment down below, tell us a little bit about how the pitch is going, what are attorneys saying to you, what's going on? Now, you make it very clear that you have a reasonable accommodation that is valid. What are you basing that on? How did you reach that determination? Are the attorneys telling you that, or did you decide that on your own? And I'm not slating you. No doubt you seem very capable. But this might not be what you do for a living. So there might be an issue that you're not aware of. Like, a lot of people call up with accommodations tied to their commute. And most of the country, most of the time, your employer is not required to get you to work. That's on you, right? It often doesn't fall under the ADA. Most people don't know that. So people will be like, yeah, they didn't hire me a bus to get me to work. I need a driver, or I need like a wheelchair accessible thing, or whatever it is, so I can get to work each day. Often the employer will not be on the hook for that accommodation. Now, it's not anyone's job to know that except employment attorneys, HR, and ADA consultants, right? So people will call us up, and I have the unenviable position of telling them, hey, I'm really sorry. You're probably going to have to figure out how to get to work each day without your employer footing the bill for that. That's not necessarily, depending on local law and some context, it's not necessarily going to be something the ADA requires your employer to accommodate you for. Often. Not always, but often. Right? There's a lot of people who will call me up and say, like, hey, I'm seeking an accommodation, but I don't have a diagnosis, and I don't have a letter from my doctor, and I don't need it. That's a position you could take. Rather than fight that position or argue that position, I'll just say this. If you have a diagnosis from a legitimate medical doctor and a letter from that doctor supporting your reasonable accommodation and laying it out, the chances that you get a reasonable accommodation smoothly go through the roof. It's incredibly useful. It's incredibly helpful, right? So, I do somewhat think it's possible, and these are just examples. I have no idea what's going on in your situation. But there's a couple of examples, and one thing I would say is if you can remove If you can remove all identifying characteristics from your comment on this video down below, giving us the details of the accommodation, what your diagnosis is, who provided it, not the name, right? No identifying characteristics, but like, was my diagnosis provided by a medical practitioner? They were specialists in such and such field. Here's what I need for my accommodation. Here's how I went about it. My original documentation was 22 years ago. I renew my documentation every so many years, so on and so forth. Just set it out for us. And maybe we can get to the bottom of what's going wrong. I want to be clear. I don't know anything about your disability. I don't know what the disability is. I don't know what accommodations you're seeking. I don't know your employer. I don't know anything. I don't know if you're an independent contractor or an employee. Sounds like you might be an employee, but we don't know that for a fact. If you're an independent contractor, depending where you are, you might not even have protections to some extent. So why don't we get to the bottom of this? You are preaching to the choir in that we concur employment attorneys, such as myself, are often shit. Like, we don't listen. We're all wound up. We fight all day. And then somebody gets on the phone seeking help from us. And a lot of times employment attorneys do not listen or don't take the time they should. Consensus. We have consensus on this. So let's pick it apart. Let's like really look at what's going on and take a look and see if we can help. Listen, I also don't know if you called our firm. We're a national firm, so it's entirely possible you called us. If you did, and we chose not to take your case, if you want, I'll tell you why, right? At least my reasoning, right? Or if I wasn't the one who made the decision, I'll check the notes and be like, yeah, they didn't like the way you spoke to them. Or they didn't like the accommodation wasn't reasonable, or whatever it was, right? Or just, listen, it could be simple like they don't think you'll be a good witness. Yeah, good case, bad witness, too much risk, person kept screaming at me. I see those notes all the time. There's a lot of people with good cases who have their own human flaws, because we're all human. I have my own human flaws, as we know. And you know, so they don't get their cases taken by some attorneys. And the higher end the attorneys get, the less likely they are to put up with shit, right? Like if you're calling on the phone and you're like, I'm not going to talk to any paraprofessionals. You're going to get an attorney on the phone right now. And you're just, maybe they actually do that for you. And they start screaming at the attorney. Guess what? I'm not saying this is you, werewolf, but it doesn't matter how good your case is. That attorney's going to be like, oh yeah, you're not worth it. Like you're going to make me miserable for the next 3 to 18 months. Nah, I'm good. Get out of here. Great case in the notes. Yeah, great case. High value. Client not worth. Too much of a jerk. Happens all the time. Happens all the time. Right? And I'm not saying werewolf. I'm not saying that's you. I'm just trying to run through possibilities of what's going on. Right? And so let's help you get to the bottom of this. Comment down below. Tell us what's going on. Let's figure it out. We can practice some pitches. Maybe if you give me the case without identifying characteristics, if you give me the case, I'll put together a pitch for you. I'll make a pitch video for you that you can just forward to law firms. I don't mind. Happy to do it. You seem like a sincere human being who deserves to be helped. Least I can do is try to do that. Anyways, you can also just ignore me and tell me to F off. Like that's a reasonable response as well if you don't want my help. But like, if you do, I'm here. I'm not going to be here for the next 10 days, flying to Milan tomorrow and then the French Alps, but I'll be back after that. And we can, I could potentially even make you the video from France if I'm feeling especially froggy. If this was helpful, like, subscribe, comment down below. Share our channel so it can grow. Good luck, werewolf. Take care.